Good afternoon. I'm Mariah Rochelle with the Rockbridge Report, and today I'm joined by Lexington's mayor of 8 years, Meet Mimi Elrod. Mayor Elrod, how are you today?
I am fine, and I'm
Thank
very
you for
glad to be
joining us.
here. It's nice to be here.
To begin, could you tell us about some of your roles in Lexington prior to being mayor that you feel prepared you for the job?
I was on a lot of boards when we came here. The first board I was on was the Mental Health Association, and then I got on Project Horizons board, and I was president of that board for 3 years. I was on other boards. I was on our church's session. I was on Yellow Brick Road board. I could go through a whole list, but I have had the opportunity and the pleasure of being on lots of different boards in Lexington. So I sort of knew how some of those worked. I knew what it meant to be part of a board and how you try to work together, and I think that was good preparation.
And I know prior to running for mayor in 2008, you ran for the Virginia House of Delegates in 2002.
I did.
And were unsuccessful in that bid. But what were some takeaways from that experience?
Well, I was never a person who really liked to talk in front of other people, and that sounds sort of silly, but you have to do it. And it was it was a wonderful experience. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about what I could and couldn't do. I met a lot of people. It would have been nice to have won, but sometimes things work out for the best. And if I had won, I would have had to be in Richmond part of the year, and I do love Lexington. So I think it did prepare me in lots of ways to be a member of city council and then to be mayor.
And why did you decide to run for mayor in 2008?
Well, I had been on city council, and after my unsuccessful run for the House of Delegates, I wanted to get involved in government in some way. And so I went and talked to a fellow named Bill Blotter, who was then our planning person, about possibly getting on that commission because there was an opening. Then I got a call from John Knapp, and he said, he was mayor. He said, why don't you vie for this seat that's opening on city council because someone is moving away and we'll have an open seat. I did that. There were 4 of us that competed, and I was lucky enough to be selected. Then in late 2000, sometime in 2007, John Knapp was letting people know that he was not going to run again. And several people said, why don't you run for mayor? It had really not particularly occurred to me to do that. But when more than one person said, why don't you run for mayor? You'd be good at it. You've been on council a while. I did. And I had a competitor, same person 2 times, but I was elected fairly handily, so I was happy for that.
Were there things about the office of mayor that surprised you once you stepped into that role?
I guess the thing that sort of surprised me was how busy it could be. And I think people make that job sort of what works for them. And I had just left Washington & Lee as head of the Summer Scholars Program, so I did not have a full-time job. And I got involved in being mayor in lots of different ways. People asked me to be on their strategic planning committee or this committee or that committee. I'm on the Rockbridge Area Network Authority. I'm on the Chamber, Rockbridge 2020. I'm on a health initiative out of the hospital. So it's been really busy, and then people just call you and write you, and you have to, you need to respond. I like people. I like being able to be helpful, and I really appreciate that. It's been a good experience in that way.
So after your first term, what motivated you to seek that second term?
Well, I really hadn't been thinking about it, but then I enjoyed it so much, and no one else was coming forward to say they wanted to run. I announced very early on both times, because if you're going to run, just go ahead and say it. I like being direct. So I did say that I was going to run a second time, and the same person who had run against me the first time was on city council with me. And that was a very surprising thing, because normally people in Lexington are very sensitive about other people's feelings, and they don't want to do anything that seems to be out of bounds. And I don't think there had ever been a person who'd run against an incumbent. So it was sort of surprising that this person ran against me, but she did. and the results was pretty much the same, although I even got more, I hate to brag, but I got even more votes the second time around. So I think it was just enjoying the job and wanting to continue to do it.
And what are some ways that you feel your second term might have differed from your first?
I think councils come and go, and we had the same city manager for quite some time. So he was our city manager until about 2 years ago. So that was stable. But there were different people on council. There was a different group when I got on council, and then when I became mayor, some of those people were not reelected, and new people came on, and there were two people that said they were only going to serve one time, and I made one of them my vice mayor, Bob Lira. He was a wonderful vice mayor, and he would say, "I'm always going to have your back," which I really appreciated. That was nice. And then his term was up, and he said he wasn't going to run again. He didn't, and another fellow didn't run again. But so it's really the councils and the makeup of council that make it very different, and it's also the issues. For example, I was mentioning in 2011, we voted on whether or not to allow anything but our own flag, the United States flag and the state flag, to be flown on our flagpoles. That was a very contentious issue. So there were some changes then. I think that's probably one of the most contentious issues we've ever had.
Besides that, what are some of the biggest ways you think Lexington has changed the past 8 years?
Well, you know, I'm just going to say we have been very, very lucky. One thing that we did that I think helped the city along was the R.E. Lee Hotel. And the man who took that and bought it and redid it wanted some help from the city, wanted some incentive, and so we gave him some tax breaks. And our feeling was we had never done that before, but we felt like if that R.E. Lee building worked well and was successful, which we thought it would be, the trickle-down effect from that in terms of getting people downtown, in terms of other restaurants, in terms of other hotels, would really make a difference to our downtown. And so we did that one thing that helped. But then, as you know, the Georges have opened up downtown, and they have, I mean, they are really very, have you ever been in the rooms? They are very, very nice. They're not like your normal hotel. And the food is good in both of the restaurants, so that helped. I don't know if you remember Bricks, it closed. But the other restaurants have done really well, and for a town, we have 7,000 restaurants, 7,000 residents with the students, and I think for a town of our size, we have been very fortunate in the restaurants that we have, and the building that's gone on downtown. And then we have Main Street Lexington. We got that designation again, and the people who have worked with that worked very hard. It has been a great help to our downtown. And the chamber has a new director, and I think when you get new people in a job, they're just more enthusiastic, and that's one of the reasons why I have felt obliged almost not to run again, because I keep saying you shouldn't stay in something too long. You need to move out, let new people in and new ideas, and that has happened with both the chamber and Main Street Lexington. So I think we, as I said, we've just been very lucky. A lot of things have come together and worked well.
And what's a favorite memory from your time as mayor, would you say?
Well, I have a lot of good memories, but we just had the lighting of the Christmas tree the other night, and I have done that for the you know, I really don't light it, somebody flips the switch, but seeing people from Lexington and visitors from other places come through those gates in Hopkins Green with their candles in their hand, and it's a very moving experience. So that's one of my favorite memories. The other, I guess, is when we passed the flag ordinance, because, well, and there are two others, because I was so, I mean, there were a lot of people here that did not want to see the Confederate flags flying on our flagpoles. And so to be able to accomplish that meant a great deal to me. The other thing was a more recent endeavor, and they're just endeavors that have gone on through the years that have worked out well. Our school, there were a lot of people, we had a lot of people come to our meetings when we were talking about rebuilding Waddell, and there was a lot of resistance. And I had talked to some parents about coming to the meetings, and they did, and they were well spoken, they were well organized, and we passed it, and we agreed to apply for the money, to borrow the money that we needed to do it. And I've always had an interest in education. That's sort of what I've done in my adult life. And so to pass that and to have this new school there, and it's beautiful, that's been a very pleasant memory for me. It will continue. So there have been a lot of good things along the way, but those two I really worked on, and they were successful. I think that always means a lot to you.
Looking forward now, what are some challenges that you think incoming Mayor Frank Friedman and the City Council will face in the coming years?
Well, I think our city manager has really done a lot. One of the biggest challenges we had was the infrastructure, water and sewer, and we've sort of moved forward on that. The next issue that they will deal with, and we had sort of started to deal with this, was Kendall, the expansion of Kendall. And you sat there, the neighbors aren't exactly happy about the possibility of that expansion, but they'll have to vote on that. It'll go to the Planning Commission, and then after the new year, it will go back to council. So I think that will be an issue for them. Other than that, I'm not sure what's down the road. I feel like we've dealt with an awful lot of issues, and we're on our way. And other issues will always crop up, but I think that will be sort of a big issue for them, because there are a lot of people in the surrounding area that do not want Kendall to expand. And I can understand their feelings, but when you buy a house, you can't control what happens around you. And so it seems a little bit unreasonable to be so adamantly opposed, but I think that's an issue. And then it'll be a new council for Mr. Friedman, and he won't really, and he'll be in a different position, and I think that'll take some getting used to for him.
Are there things you've learned during your time as mayor that you'd like to pass on to him? Any advice?
Well, I would say, we met the other day and I said this to him, it's really important to have a vice mayor who will support you, because you need that. When I was on city council and an issue came up, I would call the other members. I was very ready to do that. John Knapp, who was mayor, didn't do that. And so I really haven't done that as much as I did as a city council member, just to find out where people are. Sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. But I think it's important to stay in touch with people. You've got to work well with the city manager, because he is that's a key element to how the city runs. I think sometimes the city manager's job is to manage the city and to present ideas. It's the council's job to set policies. And sometimes those cross. Sometimes the members of city council can try to manage the manager, which they shouldn't be doing. And sometimes the manager slips over to trying to manage, that's my view, city council, and that's not his job. So I think balancing that could be an issue for him. I don't know. I think being a woman made a difference in my terms. It's just, you think by today it wouldn't, but I think it did. And I think by virtue of the fact that he's a male, he might have an easier time with that. I don't know. But he's got some very good members on the city council.
Going off of that, do you have advice for women or girls who are interested in going into politics eventually?
I would say, please go into politics. The more women that we have, the easier it's going to be for everybody. And I talked about this to a class maybe 2 years ago, and I was looking at the statistics, and in a lot of fields, in law and business, the glass ceiling has been broken, but in politics, it's a different story. And to be perfectly honest, it had never occurred to me to go into politics until my late husband died. And I was talking with someone who happened to be a friend of Mark Warner's about what I was going to do next. And she said, well, you should go into politics. So I did. But it just, I never thought I would work. I mean, I was going to be one of those women that stayed at home with the 4 children and the dogs in the back. And you know, you just you change. If you're not ready to accept differences and see change, I think that can become a problem. So that's it.
What are some ways that you might stay involved in politics in the coming years?
Well, I think we have a lot of issues in the country, and equality is at the basis of some of them. I mean, I believe in equal rights, and you know, if people of the same sex want to get married, that's not, you know, that's fine with me. Those kinds of issues. I think we have way too many people in prison. We have a disproportionate number of black people in prison, especially black males. There's just, to me, there's something wrong with that. I'm a believer in the Second Amendment, but you know, when you get a driver's license, you have rules and regulations. So for me, to have a gun doesn't mean that you just can go out and have a gun. There have to be some rules and regulations involved. So I am interested in some sort of gun control, background checks, more ability to know who has guns and who doesn't. I think it's a sad state of affairs that so many people are getting shot. I was talking to a friend last night in Chicago, and he said that 27 people had been shot in the last month. That's just too many people. And then the person at Ohio State got out of the car and wielded a knife. You can kill people with a knife, but you don't kill as many people at one time with a knife. So over-incarceration, gun control, equality in whatever way I can, those are sort of my 3. And then, as I said, I'm going to be on the session at our church, which is going to take some time. And I'm committed to that. Religion is important to me. Faith is important to me.
So going off of those issues that you're very passionate about, do you have set plans for January 2017 when you're no longer mayor?
Well, I'm going to go traveling. You know, I've had these 2-week periods. I could go, but I had to be sure and get back, and there were other meetings. So I may go out to California to see a niece. I don't know, but I'm going to go somewhere warm this winter. I know that. So I will be doing some traveling. I'll just have more flexibility, but I think it's knowing myself as I move along. I will get more involved with things, and then it'll just be something else that I need to be here for, whether it's a session meeting or some other meeting. And I love the city, and I don't know if you read Middlemarch. Did you read Middlemarch by George Eliot? One of the last things she says in that book is, we're here to do good. I mean, and I believe that. I believe that being a member of city council, being a mayor, the job is to make the place better. Make it better for everybody, not just some people, but everybody.
Well, Mayor Elrod, thank you for sitting down with us today and shedding more light on your time as mayor.
Yeah.
And for the Rockbridge Report, I'm Mariah Rochelle.